being an Eagle Scout and being a Florida man with a Louisiana coon-ass background, I feel that I'm overqualified to discuss building green futures, learning from our past, to all of you. Who here is a land developer of undeveloped parcels? So we have a few in the crowd. Additionally, who here is develops and redevelops existing sites? All right, we have a lot more of those. Well, as world leaders in the real estate industry, it's our obligation to build these greener futures from what we can learn from our past, mistakes and successes. What we can learn from our past is that the environment is very, very delicate, and if we don't protect our environments, we may not be protecting our economy. The worst environmental crisis that we had, or actually economical crisis, was after the 1930s. And this was led up to by the Dust Bowl. And the Dust Bowl took place by processes of development and farming that didn't treat the soil properly or take into account soil's tests. And these things led to the Great Depression, which, if you don't take care of your environment, it could hurt you and decrease the economy's well-being. So there's a lot that we can learn from our past. And we have to navigate our way through this very hectic process. As you can see here, there's a lot of obstacles, a lot of them. And you really need somebody that is an expert in what they're doing and understands the full process, because there is a lot of different options that you can take, and every development is unique. So the planning and design is extremely important, and what you can see here is you need to make cohesion between your community and your environment to then create well-being for both major key instances that we have to take into consideration in the planning and design phase of these developments. Some other keys that are very important is the transportation. Transportation is huge, and it's how we get from point A to point B. And in the United States of America, well-being can be improved greatly by changing the transportation methods that we take on a daily basis. Additionally, the well-being of the public is extremely important, and bringing cohesion in local neighborhoods through public space is very important to create this cohesion in the neighborhood. And through buildings, we can reduce our footprint and impact on the environment if we do it the correct way. And with these three elements, we can live with the environment and reduce our impact. As you can see here in the transportation, single-family homes generate more trips than the multifamily units. Now, this is one dwelling unit versus another dwelling unit. A single-family home has more people typically living in that unit, thus higher trip numbers. And our roadways are creating the most greenhouse gases. And we want to reduce this. And I think that some people are dreaming towards going to other planets, and that is great. But we do need to focus on the one planet we do have in order to create and preserve this planet. And we can do this by reducing the number of trips, reducing the greenhouse gas emissions from our roadways. In the public space, in the landscape, we can create greener futures by implementing our transportation systems to promote healthier forms of transportation through walking and cycling. And by doing this, we can live with the environment if we landscape these spaces properly. In doing this, we can also have parks, recreational areas, and plazas through the path of travel, which, with the landscaping, we can reduce the temperature and high humidity in climate zones, just like Florida, and provide sound buffering to the environment beyond our roadways and the residences. As you can see here, the placement of the landscaping is extremely important. This is actually USF's campus. That's University of South Florida in Tampa. They've done a great job of this, placing oak trees in select locations. Oak trees are great for absorbing the greenhouse gases, or CO2, and the placement of these is very important. Because not only do we want to create greener futures for our environment, but as developers, we want to create a greener wallet and bank account. So placing oak trees in the front of our commercial spaces is going to reduce the visibility to your site and not drive as much traffic to your location. And additionally, the oak trees can ruin the infrastructure with its massive root systems. Palm trees in Florida don't absorb the O2 as much as oak trees, but they're great for visibility and looks. So having a great landscaping plan can actually help your development greatly and help the environment if things are placed in the exact location. If we can see here on the slide, the image shows some grass right here that isn't growing properly. In Florida, grass doesn't grow underneath oak trees. So this is a little issue that wasn't thought out here. But additionally, they have some undergrowth here, and this is like a vine that grows well underneath oak trees. So in that location, they did a great job in the placement of these. So there's many variables that take place that need to be thought out. In the buildings, this is a great way to also reduce our impact. This building is actually off of I-4, heading to Orlando from USF. And they did a great job with this building, very unique. And they actually utilize this V shape on the building here. It actually moves with the sun to add shade to the building. And they actually don't have many lights at all inside of the main building, and it's all glass. So this shade is extremely important for the HVAC heating and cooling load calculations and the energy compliance forms that need to take place to ensure that this building is in fact going to be low impact on the environment. In our building design, we can be very creative with our space utilization. Through mechanical design, we can go from traditional split systems or rooftop units and we can go with VRF or mini split systems, which allow us to reduce the amount of space taken up by these systems. Because now you don't have an air handler inside of the unit, so you have more usable square footage. And the outside unit is much smaller and condensed than a typical RTU or condenser. In doing this, most of the time, all these units are placed on the roofs of these buildings. We can actually have more space on top of the roofs since they've gotten smaller and utilize that space for more generation of greenbacks or cash by placing restaurants on top of buildings or other forms of use for the public. This also allows, in some cases, for plants to be grown on top of the building and have gardens, thus building greener futures, not only in our wallets, but also the environment. Green materials are very good. Essentially what a green material is a reclaimed or reused material, recycled or non-toxic, and promotes a less impact on our environment. So in one of our developments that we're doing, we're actually using an ICF, which is an insulated concrete formwork. And this insulated concrete formwork has insulation on the outside and on the inside, producing a higher R value, which makes the homes more energy efficient and reduces the electrical costs for these buildings. Additionally, we can construct the buildings much quicker, since now we can just pour the concrete in, and it's going to be much stronger for the higher wind zones that we have here in Florida. So that's really good, and it's definitely promoting green materials and a greener future. Sustainable energy and technology can also go hand in hand with this. We spoke about the VRF systems versus the traditional styled mechanical equipment, and we can actually utilize this technology with its algorithms to have the systems be more efficient and reduce the electrical consumption. Additionally, I forgot to mention that VRF is ductless system, so it's a lot cleaner and fresher air as well. The civil and environmental design is a lot of engineering, just like everything we do. And this is extremely important because it directly affects our environment and how we're designing our space. So in the stormwater, we have storm events for a certain time period, and this rain comes down and it's discharged into our environment. So what we want to utilize here is the proper methods for the stormwater retention. Before discharge, it's retained for a certain amount of period per that water district. They have manuals for each area. And from there, it is drained along roadways and other surfaces that are impervious or pervious, and it's picking up contaminants along the way. So we want to reduce the path and the length of this by placing more pervious surfaces, which allow for the water to absorb into the soil before it collects any of this contamination. So this is very vital that it's designed properly and you don't have any flooding of any kind as well. Additionally, pervious surfaces are going to be less environmental impact because it's less asphalt or concrete or other forms of solid structure that is man-made in place there. And we can have more green space along our developments, which is very useful. Additionally, for the stormwater, we can utilize storm vaults or chambers that collect and retain the water underneath our buildings, boardwalks, or parking lots. And this is an investment, which you all know very well. In using this tool, it may be expensive up front, but you may be able to add in a Starbucks or some other building. Maybe you can make more space to fit on just a different cash-generating building or tenant space. So these investments of storm vaults are a very great way of doing this. And you could even put parks over them or more green space, which is always a good thing as well, because we do want to give back to the environment which we're taking from. And speaking about taking and giving back, wetlands creation is huge, because in Florida and in the southeast of the United States, I believe I read we have lost 60% of our wetlands since like 1970 or something of that kind. And we want to create more wetlands because that's very vital to our ecosystem, especially here in Florida, which I hear a lot of people are moving to Florida to develop, and a lot of developers want to stay in their region, but you can always work with an expert that knows the ins and outs of the whole process. And in this wetlands creation, we can actually utilize it for many purposes and hearings and work with the municipalities to get what we're looking to have achieved through rezoning and other obstacles that we take. And in the civil due diligence phase, when you're looking to purchase a building or a property, you have to go through an engineering due diligence. That's very vital. And there's a lot of contaminated sites. So environmental site assessments such as a phase 1, phase 2, and phase 3 can sometimes be required. A phase 1 is an environmental site assessment of a site to determine if there's in fact any type of contamination there. What are the possibilities of this? If there's anything that's found or any red flags, we can then move on to a phase 2 environmental site assessment, which we collect materials and test them. And in a phase 3, we come up with a remediation process for fixing up the site, which is going to be very useful and reduce the liability as a developer, because you don't want to purchase something, put something there, and then everyone starts getting sick, or all the plants keep dying, and you don't know what's going on. So the due diligence is extremely vital. Additional due diligence things that can take place are the zoning and civil aspect of knowing what the flume is, the future land use, what the comprehensive plan, and different aspects of what's capable to create your highest and best use of this site. And through this, we know what we can do with the property. Additionally, other due diligence forms are looking and seeing what species of animals and plants we have at the site, collecting vital information about the plants that are there. In a large development, like in the video I showed earlier in the beginning, we can choose plants and move these plants around to reduce our landscaping cost and preserve the environment that's there. And there is a lot of aspects in designing something that large, which we're going to get into a little breakdown of a past development and looking at the success of that development, what drove it there, and additionally, what could have been done differently to make it even better. So we want to succeed, and one way to succeed is reverse engineering. We can really determine what's going to happen based on our past. So this site here is pretty good laid out pretty well. There's a lot of green space, and this green space is done by clustering the developments in smaller lots to create the larger ecosystems and preserve them throughout. Because that green space and the preservation of our nature is extremely vital and important. And this is very vital, especially with the key locations of where everything is placed. As you can see here, we have a school right there, right in the middle, in the heart of the development, so that children can get there and hopefully walk there, because we want to promote walking. And one way we can promote walking is having nature paths that connect the different developments, which you might not be able to see on this satellite map. And one way this development could have improved upon that in the promotion of using these paths is connecting all the amenity centers, which each of these developments has amenity centers at each subdivision. And in connecting all of these directly, instead of connecting them at the end of a cul-de-sac section, it's going to highly promote this form of transportation and exercise and promote our well-being of the residents within the development, which is huge. Additionally, we want to reduce the trips of traffic because that creates 71.4% of our greenhouse gas emissions. So we have some commercial spaces strategically placed on the exits and enters of the development. And this can help reduce the number of trips and the length of the trips, because we can reduce how far people are going to be driving by strategically placing them in certain areas. Additionally, because single-family homes generate more trips than multifamily units on a unit-per-unit basis, you would think that the multifamily would be placed more in the middle or the back of the development to reduce the traffic. However, you have to strategically determine how many that site is going to generate, because the multifamily has a higher density intensity on that site, so you have more dwelling units per acre, gross acre. So, in fact, just because a single-family home unit generates more trips, we can place them further back in the development since they don't have as many units, or doors, if you will. So there's a lot that goes behind all of this. Additionally, each of these subdivisions has pretty decent entryways, and this is very vital to making the community feel proud of where they live. You don't want to just go into some place that looks beaten up, and you'd rather go through a grand entrance like you're going to Disney World. So these entrances can be designed with landscaping to make them greener and place water in certain locations, which makes them a better design for the people that are moving there. And it increases the people purchasing the homes. So you have more people coming to purchase the properties, which is very vital to the development because we want them to succeed. When you win, I win. So we're going to design the best thing for you and your specific case. And we also have to keep in mind the environment which we have. And we go through the whole process from the civil due diligence, the civil planning, the pre-application meetings, the rezoning, any amendments that need to be taken, and go to development meetings, design the full civil and environmental portion of the project. We can also work on the building design. So we don't only do horizontal, but we also do vertical. And so we do the structural, the mechanical, the electrical, the plumbing, the fire protection, and the construction administration. So choosing your planner and designer on your development for your construction documents is vital. They are the smallest percentage of costs in the development of construction. It won't cost you too much more to get the proper engineer or design professional. And we can really work to creating a cleaner future that is greener, learning from our past and how we can do this. So that's a little bit about advanced engineering. And I have a short clip of maybe like 2-3 months of video that I took with a drone, but crashed it. So this is a good clip. So I know it was a lot to take in. We covered a lot of material. And it looks like some of the technical aspects was overloaded by the material that we provided. And if you're experiencing any of these Aero 404 issues as well, I can provide any answers to clarify any questions that you have. So, who's first?
Hey, so I'm just curious on that development, the one that you kind of went into detail on and that you showed that video. How long has it been since you guys did that development, and have there been any water issues since then? Because we're from South Florida also, and just kind of with rising sea level and just seeing a large amount of king's tides coming in and how that's flooding and impacting the area during hurricane season. I know Tampa's kind of similar, so I'm just curious how that development in particular is doing with current, or more recent storms. I don't know how new it is or how old it is, but.
So that's actually not my development.
Oh, okay.
As you can tell, I'm under 30, I'm pretty young. So a development like that would be like a huge fraction of my life. to take place. I am currently working on one of the same size. So I was just showing you some reverse engineering that we go through on choosing the ways and the paths that we take to complete something. That's a good point, though. That is Viera, Florida, in Brevard County. And I don't believe that they have any flooding issues. And that's what's vital when you're doing your grading and drainage plans and your stormwater calculations to determine what type of scenarios will take place in a 100-year period or 24-year period. And these things are very valuable, and you don't want any flooding to take place. So going through the proper engineering design is very vital. And just like the 1930s dust era, we have to take care of our soil. And in our due diligence phase, we do soils tests and geotechnical evaluations and to determine the soil properties for structural reasons and also our seasonal high groundwater levels. And we can determine how much water can be absorbed into the soil, and we can design our retention and drainage systems so that you don't have any flooding to take place. All right, no one has any questions about moving to Florida and looking to develop this wonderful environment, which we want to make sure we do in the best way possible to help save the environment? All right.